Robert Harris, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. We appreciate that. And keep in mind, we did discuss this topic extensively, but to honor the Super Chat, of course, how much credit do we give the blowout to the Caleb Williams injury? Do you want to readdress that, Matt?
I mean, it was a factor, but what the thing I said earlier, I think, is the most salient point. And another analyst, Michael Castillo, really good USC analyst, pointed this out, that if you had Caleb Williams' mobility being limited just by itself, with Andrew Voorhees being healthy and in that offensive line instead of right tackle Mason Murphy, who got exposed. Mason Murphy was able to be fine against the Arizonas, Cals, and Colorados, not against Utah. Utah, you needed Andrew Voorhees on that offensive line to run block and pass protect. So Caleb Williams' mobility being limited just by itself, that didn't destroy the USC offense. It was his mobility being limited with Voorhees being out, with Mason Murphy getting torched by Utah's superior defensive front. And so the ground game couldn't function. The offense became predictable and limited. Everything crashed down for the USC offense as a result of those accumulated factors. So the Caleb Williams limited mobility by itself, it's really not the whole story. It's that reality coexisting with Voorhees being out, Mason Murphy getting torched, the offensive line's lack of depth, which we talked about all offseason, getting exposed, the running game not being able to function, the domino effect of all of that together in the same game on the same night.
Matt, of course, to address the next topic, we would need to know the extent of Caleb Williams' injury, because it could be to whatever degree. But let's say it's a injury that he can play with, but he's going to be compromised. Would you sit him for the bowl game?
So if Georgia beats LSU, USC goes to the Cotton Bowl, and that is January 2nd. So the timetable is favorable for USC, because sometimes the Cotton Bowl gets slotted on December 30th in the New Year's Six rotation. So on January 2nd, like, that buys Caleb Williams a few more days. And so, so 4 weeks. 4 weeks is what we're looking at. And so if it's like just a pulled hamstring as opposed to torn hamstring, forget it. Like, you have to play Miller Moss in the bowl game in place of Caleb Williams. But if it's just a strain, if it's fairly mild, 4 weeks, that probably means Caleb Williams can play. And, Andrew Voorhees will be ready for that game. Now, of course, Brett Nealon, the center, he's out. He's done. Like, he was carted off. You're not going to play him in the bowl game. You're not going to risk his long-term health, for the Cotton Bowl. His USC career is over. Very sad that he won't get a chance to play in a big-time bowl game. But Voorhees should be healthy. And so, you bring back Voorhees on the offensive line, and then you're preparing for either Tulane or UCF. That would be the Cotton Bowl opponent. So I think, if assuming that Caleb Williams' hamstring issue is mild, let's remember, you're bringing him back for 2023. So, you want him to end the 2022 season on a high note, if at all possible, and create that momentum and create some learning experiences going into the following season. And beyond that, like, you want to win the Cotton Bowl. A New Year's Six bowl game, you want to win that. You also want to win a 12th game, and you also want to keep this Lincoln Riley streak alive. Like, this is the significance of the bowl game for USC. If USC wins its bowl game, Lincoln Riley in 6 seasons as a head coach will still not have lost more than 2 games in any of those 6 seasons, 2017 through 2022. So, like, there's still a lot to play for. It's not a playoff semifinal, but there's still a lot to play for, especially if it's the Cotton Bowl on January 2nd. So I think you do try to play Caleb Williams if you reasonably can. And it just depends on the severity of the hamstring injury. If it's a tear, he obviously has to sit. But if it's just a pull or a mild strain, then you give it a run. And, if he's not fully mobile, like you should still think that if Andrew Voorhees is there on the offensive line, and you have Jordan Addison going up against a Tulane or UCF secondary, that you can have Caleb Williams' mobility being limited in the pocket, and he can still pick and choose wide receivers to throw to. That should still be pretty advantageous. But if it's a torn hamstring, then you sit him like that. I think that just the decision will be made based on the medical report, what his actual condition is. I think that the decision's going to be relatively clear for Lincoln Riley to make.